Hi everybody! Corey here. Coming at you with some Sage gameplay. We're about to crank out another hour at Thornwood Forest. However, before I do this, I wanted to comment on the abilities that I use, the add-ons that I have. Sage is still relatively new, and not a lot of people seem to have it together when it comes to, decent guides for him and things like that. So, I just wanted to put it out there. So I've been grinding here. I've probably got 15 hours on Awakening at Thornwood Forest at this point. And, the other night I decided to switch to Succession just to kind of goof around, and it ended up being really, really good. So I have decided to stick with Succession for the time being, and just, see how it goes. But I want to go over the skills that I use and the add-ons that I have, so let's get into that. So I'm going to go over these skills in the order of the rotation. I open with Ator's Energy, which is, you can see right here, big AoE ball around you. You are the center, and it damages everything in a radius around you. Then I move into Spatial Collapse, which is another big AoE. I also use the flow for Spatial Collapse, so it goes 1, 2. Just big AoE. This is mostly in front of you. It has kind of a hitbox that I believe it can still hit enemies that are like right on your back, but for the most part, you want this to be facing in front of you. Next, I move into Ator's Mark. This casts almost instantly out of Spatial Collapse, and it just does an absolute ton of damage. Then I move into Form Shift along with the Flow. And this actually does, maybe it does as much damage as it says, but to me, Form Shift does a lot of damage in PvE. For the record, you'll see it when I grind. I don't always use the Flow, and the reason for that is because it helps me move from pack to pack too quickly. Yes, you heard that correctly. It helps me move from pack to pack too quickly. And what I mean is, when I first started using Succession, I was killing things so quickly and moving from pack to pack so quickly that I was leaving like literally half of the loot on the floor because my pets couldn't pick it up quickly enough. So you'll see why I don't use the flow many times. After we get back from that, we use Spatial Fissure into Ator's Fist. They do combo nicely together. And if anything is still living after that, I use Prime Riftstorm. That's it. That's the rotation. If anything is still alive at that point, you can just start the rotation completely over, or you can usually use Spatial Fissure one more time. So that's how it goes. Notice I did not take my ebuff. The reason I don't take my ebuff is because of a passive that we have called Prime Overdrive. Prime Overdrive gives you 1% casting speed every time you cast a spell, which stacks 10 times for 10 seconds. So basically, it's a permanent 10% increase casting speed once you've got yourself going. The reason I don't take my E is because what happens is when you use your E buff, Prime Overdrive, you can see it in the description. Instead of staying at 10 stacks and giving you 10% increased cast speed, it actually takes all your stacks away, and it reduces the cooldown of your E buff by 5 seconds. I would actually rather just never use an E buff and have 10% increased cast speed the entire time. Have I formally done the math to figure out whether or not it was better? No, but I can tell you it's really good this way, so I just really don't have a desire to manage the cooldown of my E and think about whether or not this buff is running. Let's talk about why we use the skills in the order that we use them in, along with the add-ons that we have. So we start with Ator's Energy. The add-ons that I've included on this, because this is our tier 3 add-on skill, is extra damage to monsters plus 30 for 7 seconds, and attack and casting speed plus 10% for 7 seconds. This stacks with the passive buff that I just talked about. So once you're up and running, you get to a point where you open on a pack and you've got 20% increased cast speed. I mean, you are moving through the packs, okay? And then we have damage to monsters on here because we're about to start our chain, our combo. We want to have as much damage as possible right from the get-go. Ator's energy also has 100% crit, so you don't need to think about, okay, do I need to put crit on here? Do I need to put a DP reduction on here? And we'll talk about that in the next skill. So the next skill is Spatial Collapse along with its flow. This also has 100% crit, which is another reason you don't need a crit buff yet. And it has a DP debuff built into it. So, naturally, I use a DP debuff as an add-on, and I personally like to put some HP recovery on this ability. You can skip this if you're at a comfortable DP wherever you're grinding, but I like the built-in sustain because we don't really have a lot of HP sustain in our actual kit. So this is basically a huge DP debuff and a little bit of recovery. Next we move into Ator's Mark. After this ability, we are now at a point where we're kind of vulnerable to CC. It doesn't have super armor, and neither does actually Spatial Collapse, but you can usually use that from a safe distance. That being said, because we're no longer using super armor, I put some defensive add-ons on Ator's Mark because we are now vulnerable, and if we get caught in a knockdown, it's nice to have the defense and the evasion. So those are the two add-ons that I've chosen. Next, we move into Form Shift. I have again used monster damage and casting speed. I just use this to basically refresh the buff. So at this point, we're getting to the point where the first two buffs are probably about to fall off. I use this to keep them going. Next, we move into Spatial Fissure. I do not have any add-ons on this ability, but this is our primary MP recovery ability. And then we move into Ator's Fist. For this, I include down attack damage and critical hit damage. I just do that because, one, to be quite honest, most enemies are dead by the time we get to this point. And two, the ability that I follow that up with, if there are any stragglers left, is a down attack and it has 100% crit, Riftstorm. So, because I use Riftstorm to clean up the enemies, it's nice to have 2% extra down attack and 2% extra crit damage. It's like an extra 4% damage on Riftstorm. Between all of these abilities and maxing out all of my passives, I have only used about 1,300 skill points, and I would say that that is pretty darn good. I really don't have a whole lot more to say. I do want to point out that I think the main reason why Succession feels so much better than Awakening is because of the built-in accuracy that it has on most of its abilities, or the buffs, or the debuffs. So Ator's Energy, 7% accuracy. It's not a ton, but you don't really need it to be because this isn't really used for its damage. Spatial Collapse, this is used for its damage, and it has 15% accuracy, so that's basically never going to miss. Then you move into Ator's Mark. Ator's Mark only has 7% accuracy, but it puts an 18% evasion debuff on enemies that it hits. That is crazy. That's basically 18% more accuracy on those enemies for the next 10 seconds, okay? So every ability you hit them with after you've hit them with Ator's Mark has basically 18% accuracy added to it. Then we move into Form Shift, which only has 7% accuracy, but again, the enemies are debuffed, so it hits hard. Then we have Spatial Fissure. This is your other ability that's crazy. All accuracy plus 18% for 10 seconds upon using the skill. It's another 18% increased accuracy. This is absolutely crazy. You're just never going to miss anything. You never need to think about accuracy on this build anymore. And the same kind of continues. Ator's Fist, accuracy plus 20. Riftstorm, accuracy plus 15. It's insane. One thing you'll also see me do sometimes, if my cooldowns allow it, I will actually open with Spatial Fissure, which will give me that 18% accuracy buff on the beginning of my chain as well. It's not something that I always do, but I usually do it if I'm running a little bit low on MP and I want to fit in 2 Spatial Fissures into my combo. So those are the abilities I use. Those are the add-ons. Those are the reasons I use them. I don't really have a whole lot more to say. We're going to get started with the hour-long grind session at Thornwood, and you will see I kill enemies very quickly here. So I do have to actually adapt to that, and I need to position myself so that my pets can loot most of the things. So if you see me walking from pack to pack, or if you see me not using all of my mobility skills to their fullest extent, that's why. Because most of the time I'm killing 10 enemies at a time, and I need to pick up the loot. All right. Hopefully you got something out of that. If you want to stick around and watch the grind, be my guest, see it in action. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Let's get grinding. And oh, by the way, these are my stats. You can just take a glance at them whenever you want. Nothing special. I'm not absurdly, geared. I'd say it's, I'm okay. Let's dump off the stuff that we got from our previous run to the marketplace. And I don't use... Oh, that is not what I wanted to do. Oops. Okay, I guess we're just going to go now then. All right. Those are all the buffs. So there you'll see I did use the flow because I wanted to come backwards because that's where the loot was. So I will use the flow if it's putting me back to where I want to be. But I typically don't use the flow if it's going to take me away from where I'm trying to go. Which sounds like it's common sense, but, what do they say? Common sense isn't all that common these days. You can see I'm running low on mana, which can absolutely, by the way, be fixed with a spirit perfume elixir. I'm just cheap. I do not like using elixirs when I grind. Don't ask me why. I know someone out there, oh, you're leaving gains on the table. I don't like it. I don't like having to use consumables every single time I grind. Also, I pick up the Rabam skill. I use that to pull enemies. You've probably seen me do that a couple times. I do not primarily use it for damage, though. It is strictly to aggro enemies that are otherwise out of range or awkward to pull. Oh, wow. See, like right there, they were stacked up, and I had to be conscious of how I was going to loot them. You also, specifically at Thornwood Forest, you want to make sure you have a decent amount of distance between you and the mobs before you use Spatial Collapse, because the mobs here specifically are programmed to try to get behind you and knock you down, which is really annoying, and they will do it. If you're too close to them, they will do it every single time. So you see I reposition myself every time I use Spatial Collapse. I use it to get behind the mobs, and I use it to get away from the mobs so that they're not close enough to me to knock me down. Yep, see right there. If you're slow on your opener, they will stun you every single time. You get pretty used to the positioning relatively quickly. That's so funny. I'm always at... There we go. I'm always at like 99% Black Spirit Rage by the time I get to this pack. It's hilarious. I'm never at 100. I always have to like slow down and wait a second. That was a really awkward pull, and there's a lot of mobs left for cleanup from that. Interesting. Let's just do this. There are these mobs that patrol. I think they're called, yeah, Ahib Dark Chasers. I don't know if they're invisible or if they're just hard to see. I swear they're invisible. They basically just like blink behind you. You will get used to which packs they're in. They are not in every single pack. But when you're pulling a pack that has a Dark Chaser in it, you want to open with a super armor ability so that you don't just automatically get stunned, because they literally just teleport behind you and they stun you immediately. And it gets old really quickly when it happens on every single pack that they're in. So I don't really need to tell you. You'll learn that one on your own once you get stunned for the 15th time and you get sick of it. Pay attention to how far I am away from the mobs when I use Spatial Collapse. You really want to be far away from them because it does not have super armor. It only has forward guard. And if you're close enough, you see that Dark Champion? It got behind me. If you're close enough, the Dark Champions will get behind you and they will ruin your day. And that's basically another thing where they will stun you every single time. See, like this was a really bad pack. I got stunned twice in that pack. That was rough. Wow, that was awkward. That was really awkward. But it worked out because I didn't get stunned. Of course, you could also use adamantine crystals here, but I am too cheap. That is not what I... Yeah, that is what I meant to do, actually. No, actually, it's not. I'm stupid. The only time I really switch up my rotation for the abilities that I use is when I need MP. And I think it's pretty apparent when I'm doing it, because you'll see my openers become significantly more awkward. Friendly reminder for those of you who aren't familiar. Forward guard does not do the same thing as super armor. I'm still actually, believe it or not, aside from, my gear, I'm actually kind of a noob when it comes to this game. And only recently did I find out that forward guard doesn't have super armor built into it. And super armor doesn't have forward guard built into it. For the longest time, I didn't know the difference between forward guard and super armor. I knew what forward guard did in terms of like reducing damage. I had no idea that super armor was the thing that was, preventing you from being CC'd. Wow, this is ugly. This is a bad one. I gotta kill this pack because I aggroed it. It's because I'm talking too much. Anyhow, the point that I'm trying to make, because it's very relevant here. Forward guard does not prevent you from being CC'd. If you thought it did, you're wrong. You can literally get CC'd from the front through forward guard. That's relevant here because a ton of these mobs have CC. And you might think that you're safe because you're using Spatial Collapse and it has forward guard. But I can promise you, you are very unsafe. You will get wrecked. That's why I'm repositioning myself every single time after I open. That little dance that I do right there, that's not for looks. That's not for YouTube. That's because I'm sick of getting stunned in this spot. This is actually really bad positioning on this pull. So we're just going to do a full reset. Man, you can see those Dark Chasers are fast too. If you're not like the perfect distance away already, they sprint straight to your back. It's really crazy. It's like the developers made this area and they were like, hey, you're gonna hate this. He's gonna get me. Nope, he didn't. Cool. It's because I killed him midair. Yeah, the big guys, the bears, I don't really notice them CCing me so much, but the wolves, they do that lunge, and ugh, it is not fun. Pulls can be tricky too. That was odd. Pulls can be tricky too here because a lot of the packs have casters in them, and they just will not follow you. Like, no matter how you open on them, they're never going to follow you. Yeah, that was a weird stun. You also want to pull the mobs from far away, because sometimes if you pull them too close, they will try to swing at you, and it basically ruins the pull. It defeats the purpose. It is so crazy how dedicated the mobs are. I say dedicated, they're just programmed, but it's so crazy how they're programmed to, like, go straight to your back. I don't know if they do that in other spots too, but this is the first spot that I've ever noticed that, where the mobs actually go to your back. Don't get too upset if my rotation changes a little bit between packs. I am relatively situational when it comes to my rotation, but on average it's the same thing. I just sometimes don't want to clean up packs with, you know, big cooldown abilities, because if you use them on a cleanup, then you won't be able to use them on the next pack, and everything just gets whack. That's the noise for everything gets crappy. Ugh. Dark Mage. Up my booty. Uh-oh. Someone's trying to get a hold of me. It's so funny. Black Desert is the only game, because buffs are so valuable and everything is time sensitive. It's like the one game where if you text me while I'm playing Black Desert, I'm like, alright, you're not going to hear back from me for at least an hour. Drop buff still got 40 minutes on it. Don't talk to me. Yeah, let's pop the Z buff. Why not? Wow, that is not where I wanted that to go. Oh dear. Oh dear. Overlapping cooldowns for a second there. You can see all the trash that's on the ground, and it, you know, if I didn't tell you, you probably wouldn't notice what I was doing. But a lot of my movement and a lot of the way that I pull these packs is completely due to remembering that I have to actually pick up loot. Everything that I do, aside from, you know, just trying to be efficient with the damage, is related to maximizing my loot. Dark Chaser's gonna hit me. Yep, she tried. Another reason I incorporate Prime Riftstorm into the kit is because it has super armor. Oh, Afaru. You cannot escape. Oh dear. Oh dear. See, this is one of those wonderful times where if you get stuck in a CC chain here, it can be really gnarly. That's why at 309 DP, I run defensive elixirs. And I mean, you can see, I really don't need a frenzy draft. Like, could I do more damage? Yeah. But at that point, I'm just going to be overclearing so much that I'm going to get even less trash loot, right? Like, I'm already going out of my way to focus on acquiring loot because I kill things too quickly. I really don't need a whole lot more in terms of AP. You can see I just got stunned in the middle of form shift. I don't know what that's all about. Because it says it has super armor. I'm guessing it's one of those abilities that like only has super armor at some odd specific time in the ability. But I have noticed that with Form Shift is that I get riggedy wrecked in Form Shift quite frequently, actually. Tempted to turn on the dynamic camera effects at some point, just because this game is so beautiful. The combat is fun enough to begin with, and then you start looking like a frickin' Super Saiyan when you turn on the battle effects. I'm just constantly convinced that it's going to give me like a crazy headache. And to be honest, I'm sure it would. But yeah, one thing I want to say on the off chance that, you know, people who are interested in the guide portion of this are still here. I've seen a lot of people say you want to come here at like 330 DP. I don't know where that comes from. Because, again, I am nothing special, right? Like, I'm not a pro. I'm not a god. My gear isn't great. I'm sitting on 310 with Perilla's Star. I don't die. Even I've gotten in some really nasty CC chains. I don't die here. Especially if you use defensive elixirs. So, that's all I'm going to say about that. Of course, you know, everything is at your own risk. But for the record, I have had to use escape a couple of times, but it was just for safety. It wasn't necessarily because I knew for a fact I was going to die. It was because I just didn't want to, like, risk it. So just for the record, I don't think you need as much DP as, like, everyone seems to say. And Sage is certainly not a tank class. So don't tell me it's because Sage is busted. Because he's not. Don't nerf my Sage, please. I'm actually really enjoying Sage. I really love his abilities. I love the graphics. I love everything about him. The aesthetic is just so cool. Honestly, Awakening is, like, even more badass. Awakening is nuts. Ugh. Out of mana. Too much to loot. First world problem. Probably going to get stunned here. I am shocked. There's usually a chaser in this pack that opens on you right away. There's usually not one in this pack, I believe. Don't quote me. Your mileage may vary. This is gonna stun me. Yep. Oh, the leaps, the leaps, the leaps, the leaps. Look at that champion. I love it. It's almost hilarious the way that they, like, sprint to your back. I keep saying, the guy who programmed the mobs here is the same guy who invented Dazed in World of Warcraft. If you know, you know. See, like that? Just got CC'd out of the forward guard. Never a good time. Yeah, we need to drop off loot. With a yellow loot scroll, I typically find myself... I don't know why I went through the effort to do that. With a yellow loot scroll, I typically find myself getting about 8,000 trash per hour here. Which I think is pretty good. I don't know how much more I could realistically pull. Because, no, I'm not over-clearing, but I am clearing at a speed at which I need to actually, like, go out of my way to pick up some of the loot. I need to position myself in a way that I'm able to pick up all the loot. So, I think about 8,000 an hour for most classes here with a yellow loot scroll is going to be what you're looking at. Now, this, of course, could be different for you if you literally have like 300 AP or something like that. You might be able to move between the packs quickly enough and kill them so quickly that you loot more. I saw a video of a Lon that pulled, God, I think it was like with Agris, it was like 17,000 trash in an hour. I have only tried Agris here with Awakening, so I can't quite speak to Succession at this point. But Awakening, for me, I was also pulling about 8,000 trash per hour with Awakening. When I used Agris, I ended up getting about 14,000 trash in that hour. So, given that I seem to be getting kind of the same amount of trash with Succession so far, I can only assume that I might get about 14,000 an hour with Succession as well. Don't know. Clearly there's some optimizing to be done. I've been playing Succession for all of 2 days at this point. But yeah. Enjoying it. That is weird, and I'm gonna get stunned. Yep. And you get used to the patterns. You can kind of predict things before they're going to happen. I could be preventing a lot of this. I'm just being a little lazy. But, I mean, you hear me say it almost every time. When it's about to happen, I say, yep, I'm going to get stunned. And then sure enough, I get stunned. But yeah, remember to position yourself as far away as possible before you use Spatial Collapse. That is the only reason why the champions aren't able to stun me every single time. I know, we've already had this conversation, but it's a big deal. A friend of mine started grinding here after he knew I was grinding here, and he was like, dude, how do you do it? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm just permanently stunned. So, well, you will be if you don't know what to look out for. I didn't realize for the longest time what was happening with the Dark Chasers. Because they basically just teleport and they appear behind you. Look at all this loot. They just teleport and they appear behind you, and they have no name above their heads until they hit you, so it's just kind of like a ghost appears behind you and stuns you. I will say, in the video that I was referencing with the Lon, who got a ton of trash loot, she did actually get quite a few of the events, and I will caution you and say that the loot that you get here per hour is going to change. I would actually go so far as to refer to it as relatively drastically, depending on how many of the events you stumble across. For those of you who don't know, every now and then while you're grinding here, this event thing pops up where like a black hole shows up, or like a black fog kind of shows up on the ground, and you stand in it, and just waves of enemies. They're just like these, but they're weaker. So they die a little bit more quickly, but they drop the same trash. And it's just wave after wave of enemy, and you get a ton of trash in like no time from it. But, you know, like everything else in this game, a little bit of RNG. If you don't get those events, you know, you miss out on a lot of loot. So normally, when I get 8,000, when I say I get 8,000 loot per hour, that is usually with somewhere between 1 and 2 events. I have gotten about 8,000 loot per hour with 1 event. I have also gotten about 8,000 loot per hour with 2 events. There was one time that, and this is with a yellow loot scroll, by the way. There was one time I literally got like, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I literally got like 5 events in an hour, and it was absolutely crazy. And I think I walked away from that with about 11.5 thousand trash. It was like 11 or 12,000, so it can be... It's not too variable, but it is nice when they spawn. I would say on average I see 1 to 2 per hour. You may have noticed I want to be a little bit more specific. Sometimes I open with Ator's energy into Rift Storm. The only time I do that is when Spatial Collapse is not off of cooldown yet, and I don't want to get stunned. Otherwise, I don't do that. If Spatial Collapse is going to be off cooldown, I typically won't do that. Like right now, I'm going to do it. Because I would have gotten stunned by that wolf. Remember, super armor is 360 degrees around you. So even if something attacks you from behind with the CC, you don't have to worry. Gonna do it again right here, just to be safe. I might even go so far as to consider saying that I would consider changing my opening rotation to do that every single time. I think the main reason I don't is because of the cooldown on... Yeah, the cooldown on Riftstorm is 13 seconds. So unless you open with it, if you're moving really quickly from pack to pack, you might not be able to use it on every single opener. Yeah, we'll just do that. This is another pack with a Dark Chaser, which is why I always just run up and I approach it carefully. Yeah. Oh, she got me from the front. You can usually tell when the wolves are going to do their leap. They've got a little bit of a wind-up time. Oh, that was gnarly. But good cleanup. Okay, here we go. So this is the event that I was talking about. This black circle and all these mobs are gonna spawn, and we're just about to get a ton of loot. Stay in the center of the circle. Oh, that's usually the best way to clean them all up. But I'm absolutely going to be overburdened by the time this is over. I am overburdened. In my experience, this event does appear to be timed. Which means you can kill as many of these mobs as you can kill before the last one spawns. Oh yeah, I'm getting real slow. So remember that. You want to really focus on killing as many of these as possible, as quickly as possible. Because they will keep spawning for a certain amount of time. Look at this. Look at this. Look at how much trash. from that alone, let's kill this little mini boss is actually pretty annoying. Lots of iframes. Oh, and they hit pretty hard. Okay. And they usually drop about 20 stones, about 10 and 10, and like a Caphras. Oh, I didn't mean to come over here. I guess I gotta clean these up anyways if I want to drop everything off. That's fine. We're fine. Oh, I'm so slow, though. Oh, now these ones are aggroed. This is a weird problem to have. Too much trash loot. Oh my goodness, I'm so slow. So slow. You're kidding me. Okay. Wow. So yeah, you see how much trash you get when you do that. So let's just pick up where we left off. A lot of times you'll see me use flow recall when the wolf leaps through me, because I know I'm going to hit him on his way back. Or on my way back, rather. And we'll use one of these. And not a lot of mobs. I got a whole lot of loot. Oh, I'm stuck. No. That always happens at this pack. I need to think about that. I need to think of a way to avoid that. I just want to kill this one. Another thing you might see, I just got CC'd in the middle of form shift. That's crazy. Another thing you might notice, I don't really go out of my way to kill the larger enemies. I just kind of try to make sure that they're in my AoE when I'm using it, but I generally, if there's still one alive when I'm moving from pack to pack, I just let it follow me. I don't really go out of my way to kill them. They'll die. They will die. Oh. Unlucky. See, that's 3 CCs in a row. That's about as bad as it gets. I would say that that was an example of worst case scenario. I got stunned, and then I got knocked down. And that is pretty bad when that happens. But again, I mean, you saw my gear. I'm not decked out. So okay, so I'm going to walk over to this pack so that my teleport allows me to shift between enemies. There we go. See, like that time where the wolf was is just not in a good spot. None of my abilities hit him. I'm not going to go out of my way to kill him. He might end up dying anyways. Yep, he did. Oh, wow. We got another event. This is crazy. Like I said, 2 per hour seems to be about my average. You can see the combo I use. I either open with Ator's Energy, move into Form Shift, Spatial Fissure, and then Ator's Fist, and that usually kills them all. And then I will use my Prime ability, Rift, whatever the hell, because Ator's Energy won't be off of cooldown yet. So I alternate those, but the rest of them I use the same. And a Faru? Oh my gosh. So much loot. You know what? He'll be here. Let's focus on Afaru. If I'm allowed to. Alright. Now we can do this. Nope. I am not allowed to. Can't stand how impossible the Dark Knight is to see either. Dark Champion, I'm sorry. Got his name wrong. Her name? God, did I get the wrong gender too? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. There we go. Nice and dead. Oh no. They interrupted my MP regen abilities twice in a row. Another minor downside if you get really unlucky. Gosh, like I am right now with the CC. Kidding me. If they interrupt your MP regen over and over, that can be annoying too. He will follow us. Oh, that was rough. Sometimes you just get blocked in the perfectly worst way. Oh, right. I'm gonna go turn in my loot. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I just don't want her to mess with my horse. That's all. Where are they? There they are. Tisk tisk. Honestly, things just get ridiculous with the Z buff. Everything dies. Wasn't expecting to get stunned there. The bears usually don't do much. By the way, the reason I don't pull those previous 2 packs to this spot is because the pull gets a little wonky. You start to aggro mobs from the second spot, like, slowly as mobs from the first spot die. And it makes the pull really messy, and you have a ton of stragglers, and it doesn't work. I keep running up to this pack because I kept finding myself getting stuck on that pack because my cooldown was not up yet on my teleport. And when your cooldown's not up on your teleport, you cannot pass through enemies. Fine, I'll do this. So now I walk up to it so that I always have my cooldown by the time I get to it. And I never get stuck anymore. I'm actually coming over here because I saw the loot. And that would be, you know, that's like a blatant example of me going out of my way to make sure that I get loot. I'm surprised that didn't stun me. I'm surprised that didn't stun me. Just chalk that up to luck. See, that's an example of, like, the Dark Chaser just comes out of nowhere. This is another pack where I actually use the flow because it puts me back in a position where I'm able to collect loot again. I actually wanted to recall there. I don't know what happened. Okay, that's fine. Got about 3 minutes left on our buffs. Might be able to get like another rotation and a half. Just a sliver, but I'm not going back. Yeah, we're about to be overburdened, as they say. Why has my mount been damaged? Is my mount still being damaged? That bear's been getting me. It's little things like that that you can do to optimize your efficiency. I think that pull, I need to figure out a way to pull it nicely, group them up, and make sure they're away from the bear. See? Did it again. Stunned in the middle of form shift, even though it says super armor. There's got to be something I'm just not understanding there. A minor inconvenience. Let's do that. Let's do Z buff while we've got 50 seconds left. Ugh, stuck on the rock. Oh, didn't mean to use that. That's okay. We'll just go backwards. Another alternative. I'm gonna cancel my Perillas. The loot buff has worn off. I was gonna do something. I'm doing something different on this pull. Yep, this is better. It's a way to optimize that pull. There are casters around the crystal. I've been trying to pull the crystal group into the melee group, but clearly, because of the casters, that doesn't work. Because the casters just sit there. Z buff again before we finish.
It's nighttime soon.
Oh goody, it's nighttime soon. Just about to finish up. Gonna walk through these packs to get my loot. Is that it? I don't think I aggroed that pack. Nope. Good. Very good. So that was an hour. Excuse me. Okay. So that was an hour. I usually find myself getting about 3 million silver between all those mobs. And I believe when I started this, I had approximately 8,500 trash. I could be wrong. I think I had 8,500 trash. So we ended at 17,000 minus 8,500. Yeah, pretty standard. We got 2 of the events, and I got 2 of the events in my last run. I got 8,500 in the last hour. I got 8,500 this hour. So pretty good overall is what I would say. That's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're loving your Sage. And see you guys next time.